Welcome to Politics, a podcast where we, reread Harry Potter, talk about politics, and altogether just blow off some steam because life is so relaxing these days. I'm Adri, your co-host and a recovering English major who's found her way back to doom scrolling through Twitter and now just had to put time limits on her iPhone because, balance.
You are not alone in that, my friend. I can promise you that. Uh, I'm Helene, your co-host, producer, and person who is surprisingly making some good mental health decisions lately, which good for me. Go me. I'm very happy for myself. With everything that's going on, it's necessary.
Humble brag.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, I'm Kay Alex. Usually a lot of things, but exhausted might just be the best one today.
Well, what are we covering today, Kay Alex?
Today we'll be covering chapter 19 of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, The Lion and the Serpent.
This is the one where Ron competes in his first ever Quidditch match. Weasley is our king, makes it debut on the charts, soaring right to the top. And Harry and George resort to physical violence with Malfoy, which leads to Umbridge banning them from Quidditch for life.
And this is the place where we thank our lovely patrons for making this show possible.
Oh, well, if you would like to keep the show alive and get exclusive content while you're at it, hop on over to patreon.com/occupolitics. $2 a month will get you access to bonus content for every episode, and $5 and $10 a month tiers will get you goodies every 3 months. Today's Patreon exclusive content is a conversation on the parallels between white supremacists rioting at the Capitol in an attempted coup, and how the Ministry of Magic was eventually overtaken by Voldemort and his followers.
Yes, but what's even more exciting than that, at least I think so, is that today we've got a very special guest joining us. It's Eric from MuggleCast. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah! Yes.
Bonus.
We did it, Joe.
I've never been played on before with an air horn, so that's a bucket list item. Right off. Thank you.
And then Kamala. Life made, I'm sure. But as longtime listeners know, we like to grill our guests on all things Potter. So, Eric, get ready.
All right.
How did you first get into the series? Tell us all about it.
I was not a reader first. I saw the first movie. I saw Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Actually, complete chance that even that had happened. I actually went over to a friend's house after school one day. Happened to be the middle of November or so, and there was this new movie out called Harry Potter, and she was going to take her children, my friend Rand and his sister, to go see the movie. It was like, hey, Eric, there's this movie, and it just came out, and it's based on a book, and we really like the book series in this house, and would you like to go? I was like, oh, sure, why not? I, called my mom to ask her if it was okay, and then we went, but they paid for my tickets. It was through them that I saw Harry Potter for the first time, and I was vaguely aware of Harry before then. The books obviously were very, very, very popular, but they were also very, very, very big. And not being a reader, I was intimidated by them, especially because it was mostly the hardcovers that I was seeing, and they were just massive books. So, I saw the movie first.
Well, see, and the movie was a gateway into reading. There you go.
Gateway drug.
Let me assure you, I have since read the books. Yes.
Many times.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's worth mentioning. This is a cool new podcast that I'm doing in 2021, but my MuggleCast, which we recorded a couple days ago, is going into its 16th year.
Yeah, I'm an avid listener to MuggleCast, and when you guys brought that up on this week's episode, I was like, "Holy crap!" And I think it was you who said like, "Oh, like our podcast can drive now," which it's like, wow, that's something to think about. That's crazy.
It's a weird feeling, but yes, I quickly became obsessed with Harry and had a lot of feelings that I'm working through, as always, perpetually with this series.
Fair.
Speaking of feelings, does this series impact the way you view government or politics?
I feel like if you were to have asked me this question before Donald Trump was president of the United States, I would have said, yeah, even book 5, I'd be like, that's cute. Like there's a microcosm of some ideas about free speech and totalitarianism that's put together in a school setting. And, I guess it's relevant. And clearly there's some good political commentary in this one,
Yeah.
meaning book 5. Now, over the last 4 years, and especially now, I see, yes, that book 5 was almost a guidebook against, or a warning against, how to handle some of the realities that we as Americans have had to combat in the last couple of years, and will continue to have to combat indefinitely. I will say, with the fortunate change of the upcoming administration, I do not think it will cast a Nox spell on a lot of the rhetoric and ideas that we see floating around through book 5 and in the world today. So did I think that it was that political before? No, but I'm very aware now that it's very much so.
That is really interesting to me because I wonder if it translates differently from of course, books versus films always translate differently, but maybe because the Order of the Phoenix is the most obnoxiously obvious about fascism and insurrection and nepotism, but Chamber of Secrets had a whole monster that was basically attacking people based on blood status.
Yes.
Was that it's funny how now we're oh, Order of the Phoenix is where it really got bad, and it's what?
It was pretty much always bad.
Yeah, it was always bad, but then Order of the Phoenix is where we see the
we're talking about literal government.
the levers of government also being incorporated into Hogwarts in a more bureaucratic way than we had seen before.
I think too, Harry's tortured specifically versus Harry's not necessarily a target. Into, I think it takes I have to be beaten over the head with fascism to be like, oh, it's fascism, or at least as a teen reader. As a teen reader, I will say. So book 2, excellent call out. The entire blood status plot line, and we learn a dirty word. It's still a little bit 12-year-olds learn what prejudice is, though, compared to a 15-year-old that's actively cutting into his hand because he's being made to write lines on an evil quill. So I think that really drove it home, for me, when Umbridge, just Umbridge as a character and what she represents, really needed to be there to kind of thwap me over the head and say, no, pay attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the politics we see in a lot of the other books are it's a lot of metaphor, it's a lot of symbolism, and in the 5th book, we're talking about literal government and literal government employees and inserting themselves into other aspects of people's lives. So it's definitely a lot more obvious.
I think the biggest thing is that it finally affects Harry. The very wealthy white boy in the novel.
Yes. Well, this is also the book where we get even more misinformation being lobbied about Harry using the media apparatus that is heavily influenced by the government.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is where it's coming from all angles, hitting us over the head about oppression and fascism and silencing, and the government being used as a tool for oppression and education and all these other things.
I think the point that Kate brought up too, is 100% accurate. This stuff was in the earlier books, and we need we don't need to look any further than Dobby the house elf. That's slavery and the mudblood prejudice is there's a lot to it, and not only that, but also in book 2, the Filch whole subplot with Quickspell And knowing that he's a squib who on MuggleCast, Laura has recently been talking about, we just feel bad for Filch, and we should, because although he's portrayed as sort of an unsympathetic git in the books, think about how torturous it would be to not be able to do magic and then be forced as as a job to clean up for those who can, especially for those who are actively targeting you. So there's just a tremendous amount. The author of this series is so good at world building that there's a lot of charged dialogue and a lot of examples of different countries, especially in book 4. I'm thinking like international cooperation, whether or not that looks feasible or not, but even just in how one country relates to another, and how they talk about each other, that I think is racially charged or at best ignorant of other cultures. And I think that that's a huge, because wizards are also very ignorant about the muggles of their own country, it's played mostly for laughs, but leads to more serious lines of inquiry, I think, the more you look at it.
Well
Man, we're
said.
getting so deep already, and we haven't even gotten to the actual discussion. This is crazy. To move things along, though, Eric, what house do you most closely identify with, and why?
Hufflepuff. And I'll tell you, it was not always the case, and it wasn't an easy journey. I kind of was just like, yeah, I'm a Gryffindor. I wore the Gryffindor robes. I feel like so basic, but when I just assumed, I didn't really think much about it, and so I got Gryffindor robes and Gryffindor tie. And it was just for years. I was just a happy Gryffindor. But I will say it was no
Blind hero alignment is what we call it.
yeah, blind hero alignment, right? You just I'm like Harry, yeah.
The assumption and the desire for everyone to want to be a part of the good guys, mainly the protagonists.
I feel that, especially because when you say Hufflepuff, people are still like, "Oh, really?" It's like, oh,
Hey,
okay,
proud puff right here.
yeah, yeah. But no, actually, it was Pottermore's welcome letter. It was the official Pottermore sorting test, the first one that had Flash, that I went through and did, and really the welcome letter, which was written, I forget who, I think it's a prefect or somebody's welcoming you. The text is all online, but it really laid out what the characteristics are in sort of a new way. I thought I often say it was the first time J.K. Rowling actually put effort into fleshing out Hufflepuff, because they're so shat on, and they're jerks to Harry, and Cedric's cool, but he dies. So I was just it was the first time she really made an effort to explain a Hufflepuff, and I at that point had lived enough life as a Gryffindor that I was like, wait, what else is out there, and what could this be? And immediately, whatever's in that welcome letter, whether it's about relating to friends or being kind of generally chill, whatever it is, really spoke to me. And so I've been a Hufflepuff ever since.
Puff pride.
I really love generally chill is it's going to be the new way I think of all the Hufflepuffs in my life, including Helene. That being said, who would be your Wizarding World BFF?
I didn't plan it like this, I swear it, but it turns out it's also a puff.
Surprise, surprise.
Nymphadora Tonks, everybody. I answered this question. I didn't even make that connection that I feel like my BFF would be Tonks, but that's true. I think she's super, super cool. Yeah, she and I would get along great. She's just an amazing, talented person with a huge, bold personality, but her heart in the right place. I would love to have gone to school at the same time as Tonks, for sure.
That would be pretty dang cool. Do you play Hogwarts Mystery? Because you get to be her friend in that game.
I heard about that. I'm still at my first flying lesson of Hogwarts Mystery, where I have been since the game came out. But I have downloaded the game, and I'm interested in continuing the storyline.
All I can say is I stopped playing it months and months ago, but when I was playing it, she just kind of reminded me of Fred and George in one person.
Yes. Accurate.
Yeah. Combined.
So who would be your Wizarding World arch nemesis?
Funnily enough, Dolores Umbridge, for reasons I think I already touched on in the beginning of the episode, but I think we'll probably be talking about more about her later. So I'll just say sort of quickly, yeah, Umbridge.
I think that's a pretty universal answer and very accurate. If you could change one event or thing in the series, what would you change and why would you change it?
People who've listened to my other podcasts probably won't be surprised by this answer at all either. But okay, in my defense, I really feel like the pooch has been screwed. If I could change one event in the series, it would be that Sirius Black does not die at the end of book 5, or that regardless of his death or life status, we hear from him again in a substantial way in the future, whether it's through the veil or I don't know, something. I feel like book 5, it's just such a huge letdown. Sirius's last year of life is so depressed and relegated to the house that he was raised in, that is awful memories for him. I often say that the author of the books likes to play with her food before she eats it, and with Sirius Black, that's 100% the case. He suffered before dying, and
Yeah.
not only that, but he suffered in Azkaban for 13 years. And the amazingness that I feel towards Sirius that made me make him my AOL screen name back in the day, Sirius Black 423, which has also gotten a lot of call outs lately. I'm gonna have to check my inbox and see if anyone's emailing me there. But no, I mean, the elation that I felt when Harry was going to escape the Dursleys and live with Sirius, I know I'm not alone on this, but like still,
Mhm.
it worked. And, seeing him run around in book 4 and still offer to give Harry help, even though he was far away, was exciting. And God, which tropical bird is he going to use next? Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Only to find book 5, he's diminished and just completely unable to help in any capacity. And I think I think he's been done dirty. And I want something as a result. People who think about Sirius are often prone to look at his flaws, unlike with like, say, Lupin, who had a chance to be a much like cooler parental figure for Harry due to largely, I don't know, just being around longer. So I think that Sirius gets a lot of crap, but he ultimately should not have been felled the way he was.
That just like makes me think about it makes me angry because you think about Cursed Child and both Snape and Dumbledore get like redemptions in that, even though they're both dead. But Sirius doesn't. They could have like gotten him a portrait in the Black House and had him come back and talk to Harry that way and have him have like a closure roundup on his story, but nope, they gave it to Snape instead.
Yeah.
I think that's because like JK also did a really bad job in explaining what the veil actually was.
Yeah.
True.
Like
True.
to this day, I still don't understand. Was he even capable of having a portrait? I mean, he was capable of being an apparition from the Resurrection Stone.
Yeah.
True.
So it's dicey,
Yeah.
to be polite.
Very, very fair.
Well, speaking of things that are dicey, it's time for Potter Watch, where we discuss the news in the United States. I mean, you came in at a really boring week, Eric. I don't know if you
yeah,
noticed.
nothing.
Yeah, nothing has happened.
So let's get into this. It's time for Potter Watch. I mean, not a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. We've been having a super peaceful transfer of power. And as we would say when I was a child, not. We've got Impeachment, the sequel, which is the sequel we all wanted. I would say, like the only sequel I've ever wanted in my life. And as of today, he's been impeached a second time. Well, also,
We did it, Joe.
Well, we got like wasn't it like a record-breaking number of Republicans that voted for impeachment?
Yes,
there were 10
10.
Republicans
So
that voted for
like
impeachment.
record-breaking. the fingers you have on
It
both your
continues
hands.
to boggle my mind that it's not more like that this isn't a 100%,
Yeah.
truly everyone voted, like that there was any effort expounded to explain away or justify or complain about this happenstance comes from a real group that's desperate to hold on to power, trying to find ways that they can still lie to their base and
Yeah.
rationalize the illegal and unlawful behavior that was the ransacking of the Capitol building. And just because we did not see live executions of senators on TV does not mean that's exactly where that would have been going.
Oh, that's absolutely where it was going.
I mean, they only had the intent and the
So
means,
when
you know?
when the United States president incites insurrection, which is what he was impeached for, incitement of insurrection, you
Exactly.
ideally would have an even larger margin to cast aside doubt, because there's going to be people, just like there were for months and months after the election was certified, as it was on its process to be certified, and the various lawsuits that were going, you still had many of these same senators spewing lies and increasing doubt. And unfortunately, the insurrection of the Capitol and what may or may not be coming later is a direct result of the lies, that people believing the lies that they have been fed, and thus believing that they have cause to act unlawfully as they continue to increase terror and attack, government buildings and all that stuff. And it comes down to the president, but it also comes down to all of his enablers. And so I would really like to see more additional impeachments or removals from office of a lot of these people that know that they are lying. Make no mistake, they know it. They know.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, because you would also like to think that lying would just kind of be the biggest offense
Yeah.
of them all, but watching AOC's statement and watching Ayanna Presley's statement of absolute, I would say, like, terror, and to see women of color and, like, to see Black women truly afraid for their lives, like we've seen videos of Black people realizing that they could die or are even about to die, and Ayanna Presley's statement upon realization that her panic buttons had been stripped, that's not an accident. That that is a calculated move to kill somebody, to
Yep.
to strip them of it, to strip them of the help that their job should have benefited them. As happy as I am about like all the work that the FBI is doing and trying to, and the general public too, like people are actually calling out and snitching on, for lack of a better term, their family members, their friends, their neighbors, the people in their lives that have, in their mind, have finally reached the last straw. And it's kind of, I know for them it's surprising, but for me, it's just like, it's this very sober realization that a good portion of America are killers. Like, have the ability, have the means, the resources, and the gall to want to kill somebody.
I don't disagree with any of
Mhm.
that. None of that. I think you're
Yeah.
exactly correct.
Well, in addition to like the horrific things that K. Alex outlined, um, we have more information on like just people who had like 2,500 rounds of ammo, including 320 rounds of armor piercing bullets. That's just one person who was at the insurrection. We have a Olympic swimmer for the United States who was at the insurrection. It's just
We have congressmen and women that were participating
and providing
in
guided
the
tours the night
Yes.
before.
And the guided tours the days before. Yes.
This is every morning we talk about doom scrolling. I like to pair my doom scrolling with some morning coffee. Just kidding, I don't drink coffee, but I'm on Twitter. No, I'm on Twitter in the morning, and every day there's new info, and it's like
Yeah.
I always see a tweet. You know, it comes from different people, but I always see a tweet. This attack on the Capitol was supposed to be much worse than it was, and we
Mhm.
continue to receive more and more intel as the FBI investigates and actually reveals a lot of this is not classified. We continue to see more and more info about sort of an inside tactic to, you know what side of the politics was going to be obliterated by force, and it's the one that is not the one of the current sitting president. And so a bit terrifying, honestly. Incitement to insurrect is the lightest of all high crimes and misdemeanor offenses they could have pushed through or tried to push through. But even then, it was an uphill battle, and only 10 out of hundreds of Republicans voted. And I just can't. Well, that here we are.
Yeah, and that's the House. But there are some talks that Mitch McConnell is considering
it.
impeachment,
Oh, how
removal in the
generous of
Senate.
him! How lovely!
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
After that,
He refuses to push the vote to the Senate before the inauguration because he has the power to do that, to make it so that they can vote on conviction before the 20th. But he refuses to do that. But instead, he'll just, maybe consider voting for impeachment
when he's the
in
minority
Senate.
leader. Let's be clear.
This is volunteering to turn on the hose after your house is burned down.
Correct.
That's a great analogy. I love it.
He acts like he did us a favor by turning the hose on.
Yeah. Look,
Right.
the water's going.
A lot of the president's enablers, that man included, are beneath my contempt.
And I feel bad that I have to actually retract a statement I said about all these fascists and terrorists, because they obviously they're not trailer park trash.
No, some of them took jets to the freaking insurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a really insightful tweet came out, like, wealthy people are only able to fly across the country on a Monday. And I was like, no, that really hit me in the fucking wallet, because like Monday is one of the most expensive days to fly.
Yeah, it's when all the business people fly.
To really have to do like a real class adjustment, as well as like get even more pissed off as like, this is what you spend your fucking money on? Like,
oh yeah, no, the people who spent money to go and travel state lines and do this are people that never really, all of these imagined offenses that have been committed against them are exactly that. They wouldn't last a day in the world if they were a person of color.
But you guys, Trump supporters are only, poor people with economic anxiety and jobs, mining jobs.
I'm imagining that, what is it, American Express commercial where it's like, overthrowing the government? Priceless.
But I am like, seriously, like when you consider how expensive sedition and terrorism is, it's like, we could have had all our student loans forgiven by now. We could have had Medicare for all. Like, you probably could have bought a senator. You know what I mean? Like,
I think maybe they have bought a senator, but they're not super happy with the results yet. So they just took matters into their own hands. And also, a ton of really wealthy people paid for buses to shuttle people into the insurrection to make up the numbers. So like the people leading the insurrection were not poor people. They're the wealthy ones, but they also, to make up numbers, bought these like shuttle buses, like passes for shuttle buses for other people to make it to the Capitol.
Oh, how giving of them. These guys are real mensches.
Sure. I mean, just imagine if you were buying buses for people to go get vaccinated.
Right? How much
Right.
good could they do in this world? They just got their heads out of their asses.
Their idea of democracy, which is fascism, is more important to them than the like virus that doesn't exist according to them, you know?
Which they have passed on to senators and congress people, by the way, because
Because they wouldn't wear masks. Thank you guys.
It just reminds me of I saw this meme. Something that AJ just said reminded me of this guy that was at the riot, at the incitement. That he's wearing a shirt that said "anti Antifa," and I was just like, do you really like? And it was like, now reduce your fractions. I was like, that base. So you're saying pro fascist?
you're a fascist.
Yeah. Okay. That's what you're saying. That's what it means. Got it.
Well, I heard that there's people who think Antifa stands for Anti-First Amendment.
Oh,
Oh, I just realized this like 1 week ago, and I was like, "What are you kidding? Are you kidding me?"
Do they think it's spelled First Amendment? But like, I don't understand.
Oh, I couldn't possibly get in their shoes and answer that question for you. I'm just saying that was something else I saw on Twitter.
So they're saying it's anti-F.A. dot. Is what
Yeah.
they're saying,
Oh,
which doesn't make sense.
Oh, I get it. I was like, what is it? The first
I mean,
is
not
FI.
Not only is President Trump responsible for the 5 deaths that occurred on Capitol Hill last Wednesday, but he's responsible for, let's not forget, a growing number that's in the 300,000s of people who died from COVID. And I say he is directly responsible because we have proof through Woodward's, was it Woodward? Yeah. The audio clip of him admitting that he knew how dangerous the virus was. But from day one, the people were always going to be skeptical of restrictions that they feel impugn on their freedom. That was always going to be some part of the equation. But coming out, having POTUS, the president of the United States, be able to say, this is a hoax, gave all those people who want to believe it's a hoax an excuse to believe it. Too much to their own demise. And even if they aren't the exclusively the people dying from this, they are going out and spreading it. The event, we already have several senators testing positive for COVID following the occupation of these people in the Capitol building. And so it was a super spreader event in addition to it. And so not only Trump is the most dangerous weapon that's ever been ever been in the position that he is. It is absurd that there's not a 100% rate of people voting to impeach, throw out, arrest, convict. It is absurd right now. The death count is so high. We passed this 6 or 8 months ago. It was a 9/11 every day in terms of deaths in the United States. That was months ago we passed that bar. It is absolutely absurd. If there were anyone else doing this, and if it were still Obama doing this,
Oh my God.
Oh, Obama would have been gone.
Excuse me. Remember the tan suit? Hello.
Yeah, that's so much worse.
And I don't say that Obama would have been gone like Obama would have been impeached. I say Obama would have been taken out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for real. So speaking of this like perfect storm of just terribleness, then we have Q supporters and conspiracy theorists believing that this is all part of a grand plan, and they just have to stick to the plan. So it's just like a mobilizing effort that comes from different different areas that just creates this perfect storm of just conspiracy theories and paranoia.
I've really resisted looking into QAnon, like all this stuff because I wanted to have something that I kept away from myself for my own mental stability.
Well, we have Congress people who are Q like loyalists. These are the people.
I've just heard of Q being described as a live action role play among all these people that want to feel important, and
it gets pretty insane. It gets pretty insane. My future brother-in-law's mother
is Q.
Yeah, well, she believes in it, and the things I've heard from him are like there's things about aliens and it gets insane. I can't even wrap my head around
Well,
it. How
that's
people believe it.
interesting. I wonder if that was the genesis. So I saw an article the other day that said, as a result of the coronavirus stimulus bill, the one that wasn't $2,000 but is another 600K or 600 per person, as a result of and there's an act in there that forces the government to talk about what they know about UFOs.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, I don't know if it plays into that at all. It might. I mean,
Wonder what they're trying to get at.
I know. Area
Unbelievable.
51.
Does Area 51 have tighter security than the Capitol?
Oh,
Probably.
it depends. Are white people going to storm it?
I mean,
And
Accurate.
speaking of white people, as all great quotes on social media, like sometimes you forget who said it, but like the biggest problem with America is that when white people are inconvenienced, they immediately equate it with oppression.
Right.
Several influencers and politicians have had to say, like, no, this goes beyond white privilege. This is now white power and white supremacy. This is no longer like I don't get followed around in the grocery store. Because now you're being followed around in the grocery store because you're doing something wrong. But like, this is about retaliating against the idea that the world does not revolve around you anymore, or a little bit less than it did yesterday.
Right. My only hope is that we install leaders, people who are good at what they do in the cabinet positions, people who have a public voice, maybe a real strong vice president too. It's a little bit more vocal than our last vice president has been. And, we start really actually doing the work and showing people how to put the work in and really crest this wave. The people, need to be installed that can de-escalate, but through reasonable, just tactics. None of this unity without prosecution crap.
Yes.
well, guys, do you remember Hillary's emails? Like we couldn't get
How
a
can we
word in
forget about
edgewise,
Hillary's email?
like
I mean, she was
for months
good.
and months and months in Benghazi and whatever. But like the day after the riots, it was like we
Let's just
must
move
unify.
on. Let's move on, guys.
Move
Yeah.
on.
It's over, guys. Just move on.
Also, just as old, did y'all forget that us drinking Pepsi together would cure everything?
I think they forgot the Pepsi at the riots.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh.
Or maybe they just gave it to the police officers who were taking selfies with them. You guys,
You just pulled that memory out from the deepest, darkest corner of my brain.
I mean,
I saw yesterday, though, getting back to the one thing that was said, people asking for unity right now are the ones pleading for immunity.
But I'm
for sure.
To them being complicit in the attacks. That's all it is. But yeah, the Pepsi, I saw so many fun tweets about the Pepsi thing again. I mean,
Can we talk about like my favorite thing right now is all these videos of them getting arrested or being on the no-fly list.
the no-fly list videos.
No, the best video that has ever come out of this entire thing is the Animaniacs.
Oh, I did see that.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't finished the new Animaniac season. What?
Okay.
Animani, totally insane. And then it's like
they pulled me out and maced me.
yeah,
Yeah. I gotta find it. And send
Is it
to
a part of their new season, or was it like
No, it was like a stitched, edited video. Let me find it.
yeah, it's a riff. It's a riff on their theme song.
dang. I was gonna say
this is the perfect mix of my childhood and my current interests.
Yeah, there's a they tagged a bunch onto it.
I haven't had a reason to laugh a lot this week, but that made my heart feel good.
That's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of like. I mean, I saw today, like, as a Black person, watching these white people dragged off planes is extremely satisfying. Like,
my cousin called, like, talking to my family about this all the way from like my 99-year-old grandma has been like, wow, rough day, buddy. Like,
Those videos actually cleared my skin and extended my life.
um,
That is,
Right.
it's proven to have done that.
white people being inconvenienced at all, like,
Love to see it.
After actually doing crimes, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I admit I'm working on my biases. Like, I'm working on not being so prejudiced. But like, white people facing consequences for crime.
Ah,
Unheard of.
it's my new jam. It's the best hit 2021 has yet to offer.
I'm still like, y'all can't even like make the punishment. You still have to convenience white people even when they're being punished. When's the last time you went to prison and had your dietary
Or
needs met?
oh, yeah,
Oh my
that
god.
shaman guy, that one.
Yeah.
The organic food
Yeah.
request.
Yes.
You're gonna eat this slop and like it, or you're gonna starve. Where's that energy?
I wish we could find it. I think it's about time we move on to our Hogwarts Debate Club section. So we got Hogwarts Debate Club. We're doing a slightly tweaked version. We did this last week, but as a reminder, we're just going to reveal the politics to each other and only provide a brief definition of what the politic means instead of the 30-second timer. So because Eric is our esteemed guest, I would like to invite him to go first. Eric, what is your politic?
Oh, great, perfect. So I chose I chose an I word, incitement.
Very
the act,
fitting.
yeah, the action.
Mhm.
It means the action of provoking unlawful behavior or urging someone to behave unlawfully. I would say in this chapter, Draco Malfoy incites violence in his awful comments, and it's actually further connected because with the state of punishment, with the punitive state that Umbridge has lorded over the entire castle, Draco may have been basically coerced to incite that violence. Basically, like Umbridge is looking for anything to let her ban Harry from Quidditch for life, and so it's a means to it. Like it's essentially the hierarchy becomes clear, and Draco was simply carrying out, the edict that was given to him by Umbridge to just destroy Harry and his wellness and his livelihood.
Man,
Mm.
I love how relevant this politic is to current events, and it actually fits, and it's great. I love it. That's awesome.
Okay.
All right, Helene.
Yes. So my politic is psychological warfare, which is defined as any action taken to demoralize an opponent or reduce their morale. So these can be made against someone such as an enemy or an opponent, and to make them become less confident or feel hopeless, afraid. So basically, exactly what the Slytherins are doing to the entire Gryffindor Quidditch team, but also specifically to Ron with the Weasley is our king badges and chants that they do throughout the week and on the day of the match. And basically, they're using psychological warfare to prey on his lack of confidence and self esteem and hopefully ensure that he performs poorly in the match, which unfortunately kind of is a self fulfilling prophecy there. And then, obviously, in turn, they want to secure a win for their team through the other team's failure rather than through their own skills or abilities. Weak. And then also, of course, at the end, when Draco uses psychological warfare against Harry, Fred, and George when he's insulting their families, trying to bait them into a fight that he knows that they will get in deep trouble for.
Well, we all kind of seem to be on the same wavelength
Yeah.
because my politic is provocation. And provocation is defined as actions or speech that make someone annoyed or angry, usually an act of deliberation. Malfoy successfully provokes Harry and the Weasley twins into attacking him, which leads to Umbridge attempting to provoke McGee's anger as she presents them with an excessively harsh lifetime ban. Even the lesser punishments of the Slytherins come off as a provocation, testing to see if other students will complain about favoritism and injustice.
Nice. I agree with that 100%.
Well, again, I am not going to disagree with anyone here. We have the same politic. We just chose to call it different things, I think. Mine is emotional abuse. And unlike physical abuse, which we have seen on previous chapters from Umbridge, which leaves visible marks upon a person's body, emotional abuse is usually harder to pinpoint and can be deployed in covert ways in order to control an individual once the abuser is aware of the right ways in which to inflict the abuse for maximum efficacy. So we see that obviously with the chance to kind of put Ron at a more wobbly place in terms of his self confidence, and therefore give Slytherin an advantage over Gryffindor, and even more so with Malfoy and Umbridge kind of teaming up together to bring Harry down and take away what he values most.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah,
So,
all very similar this week. Not surprising.
well, now we're going to get into the weeds of this. And how we do that is we're going to talk about a quote or a moment where we decided, yeah, that's the politic. That's the best way that it's shown in the chapter. Which character best described that politic, and how we can also see that politic throughout the book. Eric,
Yes.
would you
So
tell
yeah,
us?
yeah. Here's the whole Malfoy quote. But you like the Weasleys, don't you, Potter? Spend holidays there and everything, don't you? Can't see how you stand the stink, but I suppose when you've been dragged up by muggles, even the Weasley's hovel smells okay. Or perhaps, said Malfoy, leering as he backed away, you can remember what your mother's house stank like, Potter, and Weasley's pigsty reminds you of it.
You do such a great Rico impression.
Thank you. Talking about a human being smelling because of their blood status or smelling because of their religion. Straight up Nazi talk, honestly.
Yeah.
And Draco is coming from a position of white privilege, in that he is high class and can't be touched by his comments. He's very clearly inciting the Gryffindors to react, and this is why my politic is incitement. He crosses too many lines, but he comes at it from it's a racist standpoint. From a time if he's talking about mudbloods, he's talking about Muggle lovers, and sees himself as this distinct, protected class, which right now, especially with Umbridge in charge, he frankly is. Throughout the book, not a lot changes. This may be Malfoy's lowest moment, though. I think overall, in the series, I don't think it really gets worse than this.
Yeah, that's something that takes a lot of thought, because he does so many awful things throughout the books, but I would say this one probably ranks pretty high up there.
Speaking of Malfoy, my quote actually is said by Angelina, who is pretty observant and understanding that Fred is being provoked. And she said, "Leave it, Fred. Let him yell. He's just sore he lost the jumped up little," which also leads to me like understanding that JK does not really understand like the black culture of roasting, because I really feel like Angelina could have let Draco have it a lot more in this instance. I understand that she's at this point trying to be the bigger person and trying to prevent her friends from being provoked. But throughout the book, provocation occurs throughout the series, typically from an antagonist wishing to draw a reaction from a protagonist or even a secondary good character. Malfoy attacks Neville several times. Snape provokes Harry. Voldemort provoking both Harry and Dumbledore. It just happens a lot. Unfortunately, as we talked about in our conversations past, most of the provocation at Hogwarts comes from the Slytherins, which,
Yeah.
typically from everyone else's point of view are the pure blood supremacists. the Nazis, the fascists, whatever we want to call them. Of course, we'll have people hashtag not all Slytherins.
I literally thought that right before you said that.
Yeah. uh, which doesn't leave the house with a very healthy reputation. But it, doesn't help that the origin of the house is based on fascism.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Slytherin straight up said, "Come to my Hogwarts house. You're special. We love you."
Yeah,
Slytherin. Yeah, that's where Trump gets his inspiration. But from Salazar Slytherin specifically. That's
But he read the spark notes on Salazar Slytherin. He didn't really read the entire thing.
right. And it as a secondary Slytherin, it sucks because it's like all of the things that could be, like we talked about on Potter Watch, used for good. Your ambition, your resourcefulness, your cunning to get things done just don't come out to hardly anything positive in the books, in the story. We see like maybe one Slytherin who's already an adult kind of do the right thing, and other than that, it's kind of like everybody's a bigot.
Right. But it's such a weird thing to prize more than everything else is pure bloodedness, because like Hagrid even tells Harry, I think when it first comes up, like, well, there's not a wizard alive who's not half or less. It's kind of like it's a losing argument. Purebloods can't intermarry; they have birth defects. So you're just lying to yourself. You're growing up in lies. You're also putting yourself on a pedestal. That privilege that comes with the lie of we are better than everyone else creates the kind of people that, guess what, feel pretty entitled, and they feel like they're better than everyone else. Surprise!
wow.
I just want a magical 23andMe for them so they can just get over themselves.
Yeah, and it's very similar to the idea of like scientists projecting that in the next 20 years or so there will be no strictly white people in America.
I
Interesting.
can't wait for that moment. By the way, that brings me some kind of comfort. Weirdly,
I want to agree, but like anti-blackness is not it's not just about the aesthetic. It really is like an attitude that seeps into the very crevices of like
Yeah,
it's
you're right. It's
kind
not
of
going to go. You're right.
horrific.
I made the classic mistake of thinking that I oversimplified and also made the classic mistake just then of thinking that it's all going to go away as soon as there's no, strictly white people left. But we look at Draco, we look at these purebloods or these not purebloods lying to themselves and each other and saying, no, I am pureblood, or this ring. In the case of the Gaunts, this ring's been in the family for 5 generations. This means that we're whiter than the rest of you. We're more pureblood than the rest of you. We have direct descendants back to the Peverils. Like, they're only, as soon as they stop being strictly 100% white, they're just going to lie about it. And they're, for Abby Turnham, as long as they're allowed to. And it actually reminded me of something that happened in this chapter. Umbridge, which this comes from Pottermore, but the backstory on Umbridge is that she had a father who was, I guess, a janitor at the Ministry of Magic, and he received such crap for his lowly status in the magical world that Umbridge herself does not talk to him, that Umbridge herself cut him out and made lies and said that she's not related to him. And this is her own father. This is after the parents split up, and her father was her only connection to the magical world. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but again, I also only half remember it. But if it comes out to Umbridge that Draco was insulting Harry's parentage, saying how much it smells at the house where Ron and Harry's stuff is, then how could she turn a blind eye? Because people said the same thing about her dad. And she is more than familiar with the kind of harsh language that Draco used to describe Ron and Harry's situation. But it has so divorced herself from reality, from where she comes from. And she's so thrilled at the power grab that she's doing by installing this lifetime ban, by, showing up McGonagall with the defense decree, all this stuff. She's so lustful that it doesn't matter anymore. Facts cease to matter to her.
Oh yeah.
And it's just insane.
And I think this is I would say, like, the difference, I guess, between a liberal and a conservative, maybe. Both the Weasleys and the Malfoys are a part of, in canon, the Sacred 28.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the only reason why the Weasleys receive the crap that they do is because they believe in equality.
Right. Good point.
Well, I want to also chime in on something you said, Kay Alex, earlier that I want to make sure that we don't let pass by, is that the fact that anti-Blackness is something that is rooted and seeped into a lot of cultures, not just American culture, throughout the world. I mean, I know this coming from Puerto Rico, which is a multicultural island where no one can really say they're 100% white. If they are, they just moved to the island. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no such thing as a pure family in the island, whether they're black, white, they're white looking, black looking, or, their phenotype portrays them as one race, that they will have multiple genetic components because of the colonial nature of the island dating back to the 1500s. Now, that does not mean that and the island's heavily mixed. We've got a lot of different representation from various skin tones in the island, but that does not mean that there's not anti-blackness within the communities, and that there's not anti-blackness in the entertainment industry in the island, in the political complex in the island, which is a little bit complicated by the fact that it's a colony, but most politicians you will see have lighter skin tones. The access to power is also tied to the phenotype, or how your genetics are shown in the exterior. And the lighter skin you are, the more access to power you can have. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to a more mixed America, but I don't think we can undo anti-blackness by just like y'all said before, by just making sure that we are more mixed, right? Which is where we're headed, because what the circle of whiteness is ever expanding. I mean, Italians were not considered white at some point.
Right.
Neither were the Irish.
Yeah.
And
I can't picture anyone who's more white than Irish people. they go outside. I mean, it's a joke, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, I think the next population to be absorbed into that circle of whiteness, believe it or not, are light-skinned Latinos like myself.
I can see that.
Cubans are one of the main reasons that is happening.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Jews weren't even considered white back in the days of Hitler, because he was going after an Aryan race, white, blonde, and Jews were the opposite of that, even though I am one of the whitest people you probably will ever see. So yeah, I mean, it's the power, the circle of whiteness has been expanding for decades and years.
Anyway, this all to say, it's all made up anyway. Everyone is dumb. Let's just dismantle everything.
Everyone is dumb. That's the moral of the story.
Including me, obviously.
Talking about you, Adri, what was the quarter moment that embodied your politic in this chapter?
Oh, I mean, we've talked about this person quite a lot today. It's that moment where Dolores Umbridge was wielding her newly acquired power, which, by the way, no one knew about until she like went through with her bag and like picked it out, to ban Harry, Fred, and George from ever playing Quidditch again. This works at not just a personal level for the three of them, but also at the level of the student body in attempting to break the spirit of the Gryffindor house and those who would rise up against her emotional abuse and bullying of characters who seek to obtain power by any means. Just whew, this person.
And I'm
Anyway.
looking through all of our notes, and these we all picked the same exact character that embodies every one of our politics this
Yeah,
week.
well, yes. I mean, Malfoy obviously is the character.
Yes.
He's a poster child of, again, white supremacy, but he's Umbridge's instrument. Everything he does in this chapter is portrayed through the lens of what Umbridge is then allowed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think Malfoy also, to me, really speaks to the Hitler youth of it all for me. Of you can have someone in power like Umbridge who is completely despicable, but she is only effective in wielding that power as long as she has some buy-in from people on the
Right.
inside, or in this case, the student population, which is
Yeah, and the
Malfoy.
Inquisitorial
At
Squad,
this
which
point.
may or may not be, it's probably not a thing yet, right? In this book.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
officially.
But
Not
they're
yet.
her instruments. It's exactly like you said. She's like a big giant octopus, and they're her tentacles that go out and get work done.
Speaking of like, we're seeing what we're seeing right now is the ascension of Draco's usefulness.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves being useful.
Yeah, but and I'm going to speak very briefly on a book that's not canon. To see that like Malfoy more or less escapes the consequences of what it means to be a fascist and gets to, people are obsessed with the fact that he gets to redeem himself. It's kind of been mind boggling to me because it's like, does he ever really have any accountability?
Are you talking about in Cursed Child? Sorry, you said not canon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to make the point that people were, searching for and pointing out that redemption before Chris Child was even a twinkle in Jack Thorne's eye. Like everybody was searching out for Draco's redemption story at the end of the
People like a bad
series,
boy.
not just even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact that he is, I guess, Aryan handsome does what he is.
Yeah,
I'm it's just it's not I'm not saying that he is not. It's just the term is
Oh
hilarious.
yeah, he
Thank you.
handsome for a white boy. That's it.
Aryan
Yeah.
handsome.
it's a really interesting blind spot for an author to have, to give him a redemption arc, in particular.
And for the majority of fans to want it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying?
mhm.
Like, right now we're in a culture of throw him in the slammer, you know? So it's kind of like interesting to see like how our fiction kind of, I mean, it imitates life, but the way that we react to it is very different. If we were, I mean, of course we're reading it right now, but like, would Malfoy deserve Azkaban?
For what
Like,
he does.
yeah, like, do we now see Malfoy as a fascist?
I mean, he's an attempt. He attempted assassination. I mean, that's
He wants to be. Yeah,
some.
he's definitely, his parents are, and he aspires to be.
I mean, if I go to the Capitol and I don't kill anybody, am I still a terrorist?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? But yes.
If a tree falls in the forest, then Noah's around.
Yeah. But I was thinking then, in terms of Draco getting his redemption in Cursed Child, she also then makes Cedric a fascist, like a Nazi. Like he
Oh
joins
my
the country, and
gosh, yeah, how
he's a
dare she?
pure-hearted. Here's why that doesn't work. And this, I'm gonna get on my soapbox a second, okay? You do not come after Hufflepuff like that.
You do that.
He
You do that.
the omniscient Goblet of Fire, literally the Goblet of Fire. There you go. Chooses Cedric. The Goblet of Fire would not have chosen someone who was any less pure of heart than Harry or Cedric, and certainly nobody that can immediately. I get what J.K. Rowling might be trying to say. Anyone can be a Nazi. I think it's a valuable lesson that we have to really, really look at
Yeah,
privilege.
just like anyone can be a turf.
I'll take, and even before when I was on the Hufflepuff skepticism train, I was like, nobody's this nice. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. But Cedric, but yeah.
But you guys take great pride in being like, there are no dark wizards in Hufflepuff.
Yeah. But I just think that the Goblet of Fire chose a guy who would not easily, a little bit of humiliation would not have brushed it off. I mean, he still grows up in the same world as everyone else, where the entire world is competitive. Not everyone's going to win every single time, okay? And a little bit of humiliation. I'm sorry, but he's a stronger character.
I mean, this is the kid who tried to give up their Quidditch win because he didn't think that they had won fairly when Harry fell off his broom. So, like, there's no way he wouldn't be able to be a gracious loser. That's all I'm saying.
True. I will give y'all that. But I'm going to cause chaos. I'm going to choose violence. And
okay.
And I'm going to say, and somebody has to do it. The only reason I believe that JK chose Cedric was because A, she was planning on killing him. B, she knew that fans would have lost their shit if Angelina Johnson had been Triwizard Champion.
What, you mean like they would lost their shit if Angelina died when she was?
Well, not only champion? That, but a Black woman representing the school, the entire school.
I mean, people would have lost their shit in a good way.
I don't think so.
That's an interesting thing.
I would have lost my shit in a good way.
Oh, I mean, yeah, because you're you.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be on this podcast together if you weren't you. Like,
yeah.
But like,
I have a question though, okay, Alex. Did you? I mean, I haven't thought of that way, but did you hear people losing their shit when she was Gryffindor Quidditch captain?
I don't think it.
I'm not saying they're equivalent. I'm at all. I'm saying that's still a position of leadership and visibility.
It's representing your house in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Is not the same as representing the entire population.
Correct. I'm not trying to say that they're equivalent again. I'm just saying that if people would, I mean, I'm trying to say, was that also evident when she was Quidditch captain? I'm just curious.
No.
Yeah, because we weren't part of that community, obviously, to see the reaction.
No, and the only reason why I say that is because, and even we see this through Harry's point of view, he very often compares Angelina to Oliver.
Mm.
And so because Oliver kind of set and broke the mold on what it means to be a Quidditch fanatic and also be a captain who leads his team to victory, Angelina just kind of comes off as like a healthy change of pace.
Yeah.
Also, too, Angelina is taunted and made fun of for her race markers when Anthony Parkinson tells her that her hair looks like worms.
Yep. Yeah. But that's an insult coming, an expected insult coming from an expected source.
No, but but it's clearly racially charged, and it's
definitely.
And I think though, while her role as Quidditch captain to me is a big one, and to other Black girls who were looking for a role model in the books, like a role model is clearly
Mm-hmm.
Black and is stated as Black.
Mm-hmm.
It just is not as intimidating as, say, making Hermione Black so she could be Minister of Magic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not
Yeah.
coming off with the same pronouncement. Also, 2020 is not the same as 97.
Right.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So, like, and Angelina, even in this chapter, it comes off as the voice of reason, the voice of maturity. She doesn't even really insult Malfoy, which I find as a very missed opportunity.
She almost does, right?
Yeah,
She says "you little," the little, and then they stop. Yeah.
which is why I'm still of the thought that, like, JK really sucks at writing Black characters, because
Oh, that's indebatable. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we've been playing the dozen since childhood. You know, like, it's a part of our school culture, especially when you're insulting my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
remember at that age, we did not take your mama jokes lightly at all.
Imagine what would have happened if Draco had been insulting Angelina's family instead of the Weasleys.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
there'd be a Malfoy shaped hole in the ground, and he would never climb out.
oh, absolutely. But, like, and I think Angelina knows too, like, regardless of her blood status, she is different and she has to uphold herself differently.
To a different
Yeah,
standard,
to
correct.
a be twice as good to get half the credit kind
Yep.
of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very Black woman and person and woman of color
Yeah,
sentiment.
because we never get any explanation as to why Cedric was chosen over Angelina.
Oh no, it's just the Goblet of Fire, all sentient, no biases, right?
The Goblet of
Right.
Fire prefers would-be Nazis. What can we say? You know.
It's just technology is not racist, you guys.
Oh
It's
my
just
god!
I
Oh
think
my
it's
I
god!
professional.
That blows my mind. What Adriana just said, because doesn't that? Oh my god! Did they hook this up into? Wasn't it Harvard's acceptance algorithm? They hooked it up, and it
Hmm.
preferred white
Hmm.
kids, and it's not that the machine was racist, but it picked up on the racist patterns of.
This is one of my soapboxes. Is like, guys, technology is made by people, and people have biases, and they're racist as hell. So therefore, the technology, the product, will have the same fucking
So wait, the
biases.
Goblet of Fire. So this explains it. This explains the Goblet of Fire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've said this not for the goblet itself, but for other things before. A spell is like a coding. It's like coding into an object or a technology, right? So if you're putting part of yourself into this, and the spell is part of that effort, you're also imparting your same biases into the object.
Mm.
So the Goblet of Fire has the same biases of the person who
I am blown
enchanted
the
it.
heck away.
You mean to tell me across 3 countries, all four of your champions have to be white?
Well, there's only 6 non-white characters in Harry Potter, so it's just good odds.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just leadership. Leadership comes in that one color. I don't know if you knew
Yeah,
that.
my god.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
man.
All right, Helene. Helene, let's move on to you.
The quote that I think embodied my politic of psychological warfare, I chose an instance with Ron because I feel like he goes through. I know that the main event of the chapter is definitely the physical provocation and fight between Malfoy and the Weasleys and Harry, but I do think that Ron goes through a lot in this chapter as well.
And the song, man.
Yeah, the song is awful. The quote I specifically chose is when Slytherins, some of them seventh years and considerably larger than he was, muttered as they passed in the corridors, "Got your bed booked in the hospital wing, Weasley?" He did not laugh, but turned a delicate shade of green. So yeah, he goes through a lot of, as Adri would say, emotional abuse in this chapter. A lot of teasing and things that he's just not used to. And as they explain in the chapter, Harry's just kind of used to it at this point. Like all the Gryffindor Quidditch team is going through this. They all have to endure this every match, but this is the first time Ron is doing it, and he has an obvious Achilles heel. Like his self-esteem and his confidence are already so low that they know exactly how to attack him to make it even worse and to affect his playing and his performance. And it so bothers me that the Slytherin Quidditch team cannot, for the love of God, take 1 ounce of effort to actually try and be good at Quidditch and win with their own skill.
That is out of the question. That is not even an option.
And speaking of leadership, though, this is the year where they get a new captain.
Yeah.
Marcus Flint is no longer captain.
Yeah, but like it's just like they're so privileged and so entitled that they don't think they have to actually try to learn how to play Quidditch well, because they'll just rest on their laurels of, oh, we can just make the other team suck. That's fine.
Helene, this reminds me of like the college admission scandal of like, what? We just photoshopped our pictures into this thing to get into college. What's the big deal? Did we actually have to do it? Did we actually have to
Our
try?
homegirl went all the way to the Supreme Court to complain about the 6% of Black people that got in instead of her.
Yeah.
What was her name? Abby.
Just,
what?
you know what? I don't know. And honestly, this is going to probably it's just a Google search away from an employer to just find her.
That's true. And then I was like, I think it was Abby Fisher. That sounds white enough.
Okay. I'll allow it.
Oh goodness. Basically, the rest of my notes are Draco. Draco sucks. Draco uses psychological warfare against everyone all the time, every day, every second. And yeah, I mean, it's a theme in all of our
it was
in all of our notes.
Fisher. It was Abby Fisher versus University of Texas. And I remember being like, is University of never mind. Not going there. I'm not gonna have these Longhorn fans attack me. No.
I'm surrounded by them in San Antonio, so I'm just not gonna even go there.
So should we move on to Dementors and Chocolate?
I feel like we should.
Yes.
Let's just move on from Longhorn.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our Dementors and Chocolate. In case you are not familiar, we discuss our Dementors in the chapter and then our chocolate in the chapter. The Dementors are the things that we didn't like so much in the chapter, the things that annoyed us or angered us, and then the chocolate is the stuff that made it all better and made it happy and we enjoyed in the chapter.
Neat. I like that. I like what they're called. I like the idea of it.
Yeah, so what was your Dementor this chapter?
It's crazy enough that Malfoy, for everything he does and gets up to in this chapter, it's crazy enough to learn that he takes credit for writing the lyrics to Weasley's Our King. Not that there's that many of them. It's pretty repetitive. But, it's still a massive undertaking. He probably did a focus group. He probably was the hit of the Slytherin common room figuring out the lyrics. But not only that, they've created these badges that are crown-shaped badges, and every Slytherin or every non-Gryffindor supporter can accessorize.
I never thought about this before, but Draco really likes to make badges.
Malfoy is such a fascist one-trick pony.
He should go into he should make an Etsy store of these badges.
I mean, we first meet him in Madame Malkin's. Do you think that he was pursuing a fashion, even back then he had a real interest in hanging around where clothes and adornments are made? That was a real stretch, but I thought, I saw the connection thread.
Coco Chanel had some Nazi adjacent relationships.
Oh.
And so fashion and fascism not so,
Wait,
not so.
wait, come on, Coco, Draco. I think there's a connection here that we're.
There's like also fashion and fascism.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
The song is a masterclass in emotional sabotage, and it really is. It's the most brilliant tactic ever employed by a villain in Harry Potter. Is this song? It achieves exactly the effect they were looking for. Exactly, they've sniped it. They've honed it in. It reaches its target audience and destroys Ron's morale, which was already low to begin with, and already fragile to begin with. It's only through Harry's heroism that he turns the match around and is able to end it fast enough for Gryffindor to still pull a W.
And this is the second time that this has happened, because Malfoy does the same thing with the Potter Stinks badges in an attempt to wreck Harry's self-esteem. And of course, everybody's tune changes once he grabs the golden egg with his firebolt.
And everybody's tune literally changes when they repurpose Weasley as our king to be an anthem for when Weasley actually wins the match.
Right.
That's nice. But in the meantime, there's these little badges, which are just so wasteful. Is they're going to sit around. Nobody's ever going to use them. They're going to go in the bottom of a trunk somewhere. Like who's ever
not eco-friendly?
It's just badges. It's like, come on, man. So my Dementor for this chapter is like, the badges are a bit extra. That's like, when you just like trying to convince everyone that you're part of a mob and the mob is bigger than you say it is. It's like trying to like crowd sizes,
It's like a MAGA. It's like the MAGA hat of
yeah.
Colleen, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, it's like the MAGA hat. Oh, these fascists, they really like accessories.
really
and have been harassing some other more talented fascists to do the charm work.
Anyway, my Dementor, the phrase used to describe Pansy Parkinson as pug-faced. Do we really have to make fun of people's looks in order to make sure that we know that they're evil in the series?
Oh yeah, the author, it's like ugly equals evil, attractive equals not evil.
Yeah.
That's how the author.
I'm not gonna.
Also, what did pugs ever do to you? I love dogs.
What did pugs ever do to you?
I'm not gonna call anybody a bad writer, but
I completely agree. Pug-faced is a problematic kind. It's just the whole thing is very problematic, but that's one of those things that like 1997 or rather 2003 versus 2021, a world of difference. Like, yeah.
I mean, I think maybe it's also I always had like a little bit of a problem with things like that, mostly because as a young woman reading these books, I was very hyper aware about how I was always going to be looked at for my appearance first and then for anything else even beyond that second, if anything at all. So that was just reaffirming to me that looks were the only characteristic that people looked at to assign goodness or evil or smart or not smart.
Even Harry, who's not a discerning individual, he does not pick up on many of the details. Even notices that like Rita Skeeter's hands are mannish. Like, little comments like that, little things like that make you think, what the hell? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah. Also, as a lover of pink, I feel personally attacked by Dolores Umbridge.
No, pink is awful. Pink is awful. I'm sorry. That's just how it is.
We will have to respectfully disagree, Mr. Scott.
I'm kidding. Nothing wrong with pink.
That also reminds me of how there are some secondary characters in the book that are only described solely by their quote-unquote unattractive trait. Like how Eloise Midgen is known only for the fact that she has acne on her face.
Right. Nothing else.
Stan Shunpike is another acne sufferer.
Yeah, and as somebody who was definitely going through an acne phase in 2003.
Yeah.
Helene, Dementors.
Yeah, so my Dementor, it's kind of a hot take, because it's my Dementor are some beloved characters that are victims in this chapter. So it's Harry and George and Fred, but really not being able to because he's being physically held back. Resorting to physical violence with Malfoy and giving him exactly what he wanted. As mentioned, they were totally in the right for sure. Malfoy deserved that, but as a huge pacifist, I always think it's just unnecessary to resort to physical violence. So violence is never the answer. It fed right into Umbridge's hands. I wish they hadn't done it. I would have actually probably felt better if they had like casted drinks on him with their wand rather than smashed their fists into his face. And I'm not really sure why that would make me feel better, but for some reason I think it would. Just, words are stronger than fists, guys.
Yeah.
Let's talk it out.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay, Alex, what was your Dementor?
I had to dig deep and put on my teacher hat for a bit and also my coach's hat. Because has anybody else realized that Quidditch doesn't have coaches? Anyway, that there was only one referee for the Quidditch match, when in the series past, there have been at least two, even when the referee matchup was unfair, i.e., Snape. But it looks bad on the teachers knowing the rivalry between Gryffindor and Slytherin and not preparing for such an incident. I'm not ever going to say that violence is never the answer because sometimes fascists just need a good punch in the face, as seen by Hermione giving Draco a really nice punch in the face 2 books before. It grinds my gears that a lot of incidents could be prevented if the adults in the book had actually been doing their jobs.
That's a tremendous point, which I love. And you're right. Where was the second ref? And even if there was only one referee, where the hell was Madame Hooch that she wasn't in the center of the group that had amassed there? Like when a Quidditch match ends, you go to the Seekers. You just do, because that's where the action has most recently taken place. If there's any kind of dispute, like in this particular match, their arms were real close to one another. If they wanted to lobby any complaints, like, oh, he pinched my finger out of the way, or, like foul that nobody else
Yeah.
saw, the referee would just naturally go to, it's literally like the ref not being anywhere near a goal, right? But being,
Well,
Yeah,
in this specific instance, I believe that Madame Hooch was reprimanding Goyle for hitting a
how
bludger
long
in
does
Harry's
that
back.
take? Honestly, I mean,
Yeah, no, that's true.
like
Yeah.
what a distraction, what a
obviously it
convenience.
didn't do much because his punishment is just writing lines and detention. So
That's what I think about when I think about whether or not we allow the Republican senators that delayed, the vote counting process and all that stuff, so that the allegedly so that the insurrectionists could reach the Capitol and there'd still be people there. Are we talking about like censuring them? Are we talking about a slap on the wrist? Are we talking about expelling them from the MRFing Senate? For being a party. And so Goyle's lines is like, oh, it's almost like the good guys, or let's say, for instance, just for fun, the Democrats are not willing to use the same tools that are clearly being used by the other side.
yeah,
And I have a pacifist
Mhm.
part of myself too, but it gets overwhelmed sometimes because Hufflepuffs are also fierce, and honey badgers sometimes need to get the claws out. But like, I cannot stand to see my people be abused and not be like the people who represent those people not being able or willing or capable of fighting using the same tools and techniques.
the eagle in me is just like, I'm not having it. And that's maybe why J.K. Rowling didn't give any Ravenclaws any substantial.
They wouldn't stand for the shenanigans.
Well, I mean, so if we're going by houses and what they're driven by, right? So Slytherins and Gryffindors seem to be more driven by their gut rather than their intellect. So that's why Slytherins and Gryffindors have more of the clashes within the book because it's the only thing that moves the plot further in an easier way for the author.
Oh yeah, Absolutely.
Because otherwise, then she has to justify too many
Well, right, yeah,
things.
exactly. But you know, in reality, there would be a Hogwarts debate club, like a legit. There would be a student council body, and there would be litigators. There would be Ravenclaws litigating this fight between Malfoy and Harry and the Quidditch team, and then telling
Oh, like a student
and then
government.
telling
Ooh, that would be
Umbridge
so
what
cool.
her like abilities are or whatever. Like you know that there would be a total like courtroom scene, like figuring this out, but like at Hogwarts, if the Ravenclaws were realistically
How
written.
does the Ministry of Magic have a Supreme Court with no lawyers?
Oh,
I don't understand.
Well, I think the idea is that they're well versed enough in the law, like they would be like a their Supreme Court, quote unquote, seems more to me like a hearing that was in front of Congress and the Senate, in which maybe some of those people have legal training, like Dumbledore kind of knew the laws enough to, to get Harry out, but it's more about punishment through just political means.
Dumbledore himself was expelled from the Wizengamot, so you would hope that he knew the knows the law, but like
Yeah, but there are a lot of political appointees who have, I mean, and we see this now, right? Who have no knowledge or respect for the law.
great.
Anyway, let's move on from our Dementors and go towards the chocolate. What did
I
you like
love
about
it.
this chapter?
This is the remedy to Dementors is chocolate, so I love
Yes.
this. It's fantastic. It happens at the beginning of the chapter, but it's Hermione's time to shine. She gets to reveal the special galleons with the protean charmed edges. She takes
Mhm.
something so seemingly mundane, although not to Ron, he's never seen a galleon before in his life. She takes something seemingly so mundane in the serial number and turns it into a really, it's just the most clever Hermione's ever been. And not only that, but students don't let her forget it. I think it's Terry Boot.
Yeah,
Somebody's
it
like,
is
dude,
Terry Boot, yeah.
protean charms are Newt standard, that is. And she's like, oh, I guess. But he's like, yo, girl, like your magic out of this world. And let's be fair, it is. This is the workable solution that ends up working and solves all of their problems in terms of meeting, being able to effectively communicate the time of their next DA. So this was a wonderful thing to see in this chapter that's otherwise all about emotional abuse and torture. And, you know, Hermione actually reveals that she was almost a Ravenclaw
Mhm.
mhm.
in this chapter in response to that. So that's, you know, that's pretty good stuff for her. Go, Hermione.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Actually, Eric, mine is related to yours. For me, the chocolate is the moment where we as readers realized that out of the trio, Ron was the only one the sorting hat did not consider sorting into another house.
Because he's a Weasley.
He's a Weasley. Another.
I always push back on this thought because I think Ron, and he says it on the train, that he would not have wanted to end up in Hufflepuff.
I believe the sorting hat barely touched his head, though, before making his
But
pronouncement.
imagine that your desperation to be like your family is so heavy that the sorting hat just does what it wants. It gives you what you
Mm.
want. You know what I mean? Like Ron's desperation to be like the better halves of his family seeps through his pores. It seeps through every inch of this book. You know what I'm saying? Like Ron's sole motivation, as we see when he's looking in the mirror of Earsaid, is to be the best Weasley.
So you think what, Slytherin, because of his ambition,
No,
would be better?
no,
Okay.
I'm I'm saying that his desperation to be like his family clouds his true identity. Because people say, oh, Ron's so friendly, Ron's so loyal, Ron's so kind. And it's like, but we don't really get to see that because he's so desperate to be a
Well, but
Gryffindor.
here, the thing I think, see, but this would though depend on what your theory is about sorting. Does the sorting hat sort because of your parentage and who your family is, because there's this idea in society about, who your family is, determines who you are.
Well, we know the answer to that because
Well,
if it's sorted by parentage, Sirius would have been in Slytherin. But Sirius obviously knew that he didn't want to be
But we
like
don't
his
get
family.
correct. But we don't get input on whether it was a deliberate, like, was it deliberation or was it instantaneous in Sirius's part. I
I
don't
think
believe.
the sorting hat sorts based off of morals and values, which you more than likely do get from your family, which is why that sorting tends to be generational. I think that's the most easy
That works for
explanation.
me.
Yeah,
That works for me.
it's the best explanation I've heard, and that I mean, you get a lot of people do get their morals and from their family, and some people don't, like Sirius. Sirius's morals were
Yeah.
way different from his
Also, too,
family's.
seven different children from the same family. I think JK would have had her hands full if they all weren't in the same house.
Yeah, because they'd always be hanging out, right? Across houses, and that would just there's even a line in this chapter, on MuggleCast, we talk all the time about how there really should have been more after-school mixing of the houses, like mingling in after-school programs. But even Harry says when he's talking about how difficult it is to covertly convey the time of the DA meetings, is like, it would be too suspicious if too many students from not the same house were seen in public together around Hogwarts. He's just like, oh, maybe he's talking about, these Umbridge times. But I was like, but wait, there's the Gobstones Club, and then there's probably like a Wizard's Chess Club that meets, and there's probably like people from different, like, inter-house cooperation, man. Like, there have to be social, ways of getting outside your own house to meet people and have friends.
Unless you want to believe that Parvati and Padma did not speak at all the 7 years they were at school
They
together.
can't stand each other. Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy to think that. And then I was also thinking when you were talking about Ron, that he had that really strategic streak at the end of book 1 that never ever 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 came back again.
Yep.
Um, I really wonder what initially that was ever going to be. If it was anything, if there was ever a thought that it would have something to do with any book besides the first one and get them anything out of
It's just
anything else.
an efficient plot device that then she just discarded because it was
You would think
convenient.
his being good at chess would have so many real world implications.
Yes, exactly. Like strategic, able to plan
Able to see the
ahead.
bigger picture.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it was just when he was 11 and then he grew out of it, you guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Helene, your chocolate.
Yes. So we're going, I mean, mine's also about Hermione, so similar to Eric. But it's Hermione helping Ron feel better before the match by saying that he tends to do better in exams if he's nervous beforehand. I think that was just a really loving gesture from her, because she knows that he is well aware that everything is in the perspective of exams in her life, and it's her love language to kind of say, oh well, you're nervous now, but that's probably a good thing because you tend to do better in exams when you're nervous. And I just thought that was really sweet, and it was a cute, caring gesture.
She's always trying to make this unhealthy
Aw.
ship happen, Eric.
What? That is so
No,
not
it's
true.
not her. It is not her. It
Oh.
is actually me. So,
That is- Last week I said that Adri called it like old married couple bickering between them, and I said it's not couple bickering; it's people who legitimately do not get along and should not be dating bickering.
Wow. Okay.
but as an old married lady, I just feel like that's the level of comfort that you get going into a relationship.
Okay. Okay, Alex, why don't you tell us what your chocolate this chapter was?
Talked about it a little bit earlier, but Angelina trying to be a good captain and friend by leading Fred and Harry away from Malfoy's provocations. We don't see enough of her building relationships or establishing why folks should listen to Black women.
Ooh.
Amen.
Heck yeah.
We owe Black women this election
For reals.
and many others.
and many other things, actually, period. We got some listener mail that we want to kind of highlight. So we got this through our website, where people can also leave us a message if they don't want to just email us. Okay, Alex, will you do the honors, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm a new listener. I've been catching up on the episodes and I just listened to the bonus episode, Not Named Politics, Crossover Part 1, Two Unqualified Women. You guys mentioned refinding out your house again when you are older. I'd like to mention that maybe it should be voluntary. As you guys mentioned, some people may like their house and want to stay there. They may feel nervous about being switched when they feel that they value their current house's traits. Perhaps people that are uncomfortable in their houses or uncertain should apply for rehousing at a certain age. Or a professor head of house could recommend students to try rehousing, and a student could agree to take up the opportunity instead of just putting on the hat on everybody again at an older age. Just some thoughts. I love the podcast and the discussions that you guys have, so thank you so much.
I love the
Well,
idea of applying for rehousing. I love
Yeah.
that.
yes. Well, this listener is making her way through our catalog. This is one of woof. I don't even remember when we did this one, but this was a crossover with the not named podcast that does a reread of Harry Potter as well. Shout out to them. So, what do you guys think about this idea of do did you stay in the houses you were initially sorted into? I know Eric thought he was a Gryffindor, and then
Yeah.
he found out he was a Hufflepuff.
Yeah, now I really embrace Hufflepuff too, so absolutely I would have changed. And um yeah, it's just utterly nuts that people that we didn't that there was just, it's so cut and dry in the books. Realistically, in a realistic and diverse and ever-changing world, you would have kids changing houses, and that would be really normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was a Ravenclaw until Pottermore existed, and I definitely, I mean, I was always good in school. I always got good grades. I was known as like a nerd, all those things. I was like, oh well, I'm good at school, so I must be a Ravenclaw. And then Pottermore came out, and I was a Hufflepuff, and it fits so well. So yeah, I can't imagine going through life as an adult still thinking I'm a Ravenclaw. So rehousing probably would have been absolutely necessary for me.
Nice.
What about you, K, Alex?
I feel like I've always been a Ravenclaw. But I think too, like having a really interesting conversation about who we are in certain mental states as
Hmm.
well. Like I have two Pottermore accounts that are for two different houses and Slytherin on the basis of like again like ambition and cunning and resourcefulness, like the general traits of what they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Just the idea of Ravenclaw challenging me to exercise my brain every single day and to see the value in other sources of intelligence. And I think that's why Ravenclaw is so complicated because like you do have book knowledge, but then you have emotional intelligence, and then you have social intelligence, and then you have common sense, So, like, being able to have an appreciation of all these different types of intelligences and being around people that are intelligent in a variety of ways. I, I think I just enjoy my time in Ravenclaw way too much. Plus, Slytherin's common room is in the dungeon, and I hate being cold.
Well, I've said it once and I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again. I am a reluctant Gryffindor. I did not think I was a Gryffindor. So I think Eric, we have the opposite problem. Until Pottermore sorted me into Gryffindor, and every other test I've ever taken, even if it's not related to the wizarding world always sorts me into Gryffindor. So
Wow. So by now you surely must have. What's the trait? What's the trait that gets you there, that sticks you
it's
there, do you think?
it's so for me, it's my I don't know if you're familiar with like the Enneagram, but I am an Enneagram 8, which is known as the protector. And it's that
Oh, yep.
instinct to protect other people and jump into situations kind of like without thinking sometimes in order to protect someone else or to protect an idea or to,
Yeah.
always on like protecting mode.
So you get
So
that hero thing going. Got it.
yeah, and it's not something I love about myself, but it's definitely something I have. So here we are.
Hey, we need heroes.
It gets me into trouble is what it does. But you know what? It's okay. It's who I am at this point. Each week, we ask our listeners one question. This week's question is a two-parter, and there's a bonus to that. The first part of that question is, why does Malfoy, that is Draco Malfoy, love to bully with accessories? And the second part is, what should Malfoy name his Etsy badge/accessories store? We know that you're going to have such a blast coming up with these store names, so we will pick the best shop name submitted by you, our listeners, for that store, and that one listener will get branded swag in the mail from that fictional Etsy store, designed by me, including a sticker from the store. So we can't possibly contain ourselves in thinking about the great ideas that y'all are going to have for this store.
All right. So, what media have you been consuming, and what would you like to plug this week, Eric?
Ooh, gosh, you guys caught me at a really cool time because I have something to say other than just MuggleCast. But MuggleCast is my weekly Harry Potter podcast that I do with several other close friends who, at one point or another, all worked for MuggleNet. But the media I've been most consuming lately, I just clocked in hour 30 on Horizon Zero Dawn, the video game.
It's a good game.
And this is such an amazing game. I waited years. I hadn't really heard of it. It flew under my personal radar, but I've been playing it lately and I've been streaming it on Twitch.
Ooh, I should go watch.
So yeah, anytime you want to hop in, great. I am taking a week off right now, but it's an amazing game. All the videos should be up there. And if not, then they're on my personal YouTube, which is user Eric J. Skull. And it's just been a blast. I'm new to Twitch streaming, but I thought this seems to be a game I could sink 40 hours in, and sure enough I was right. I'm already at 30 something, and there's 20 or 30 more to go. So but I love the story, I love the characters. It's just a really 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 good time. So that's definitely like the big thing I'm consuming right now. And then as far as projects that I want to promote, I have a podcast that I started. That's my podcast. That's just my podcast, and it's about different stuff every week. Although about half of our episodes have been about COVID-19, and I've actually had an expert come on, a PhD immunologist, a couple of times. The most recent episode is about vaccinations, how they work, and various other new year, new COVID facts. And that's with Dr. Priyam Patel and I. And so my podcast is called Thank You for Spieling. And it's like I said, if you find it wherever podcasts are found, the episodes all have obviously titles, descriptions. I interviewed Washington Post's TikTok guy, actually right when the podcast was starting, as well as the language creator for Dothraki and Valyrian languages on Game of Thrones. Actually, we talked about music because I did this thing where I was like gonna have people on to talk about something other than what like they're an expert in, and then COVID happened, and I was like, no, I'm gonna interview like ICU nurse, anesthesiologists, and stuff. But yeah, so it's a work in progress, but it's something that is wholly my own. I'm thrilled to call it mine, and really just can't gush about it enough. Please give it a listen.
That sounds amazing.
It does.
Totally gonna have to go listen to it.
Just real quick, how to find me online. I'm on Twitter mostly, and I retweet smarter people than me. I don't usually like tweet. I retweet. It's RT's RS I've sometimes gone by, but it's at Spielerman on Twitter.
All right, Helene, what media have you been consuming?
I finally watched Soul over the weekend on Disney Plus, and it was good. Not the absolute best Pixar movie I've ever seen, but the music is amazing. The animation was great, and I did end up sobbing my eyes out at the end without fully understanding why I was crying. So I guess that says something. And then just another throw in there, Little Mix's new album. I guess it's not really that new anymore. I think it might have came out in 2019. But their newest album, Confetti, I've been listening to it on repeat. My favorite girl group, they sing about female empowerment and female sexuality, which you don't see a lot of both. So I'm here for it. Please check it out. Little Mix, Confetti.
Ooh, great. Okay, Alex, what about you?
I've been continuing series lately. Just finished The Mandalorian season 2. I am also now watching Hilda season 2, a cute cartoon series on Netflix that involves friendship, magic, and how humans and supernatural creatures can live in harmony with effort.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, that's so wholesome. I love it. Well, I have not been watching something wholesome. This is another week where the media I've been consuming is quite unsurprising. I'm still watching 30 monedas or 30 coins, or as I like to call it, Action Priest. Is it the best show in the world? No. But does it push all the right buttons for me? Absolutely. It has a lot of shirtless scenes with my like Spanish actor crush from Velvet. And as my husband says, I should write a thank you note to all the writers of the show for making that happen. Every time he's like shirtless, and there's like a panning shot that you would associate with like a female in a series, not a male body. I'm just like, hey, honey, could you rewind it? I think that there's something we missed there. There's like something that might be important later in the series. And he's like, I'm not calling for this.
I'm so surprised that he has the control of the remote in this situation. All right, that's it for today's episode. Join us next week to talk about Chapter 20 of Order of the Phoenix, Hagrid's Tale. Also, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to us right now. That would be awesome, and we would love it. Thank you.
5 stars are nothing, you guys. But yeah. Until then, politics managed. Keep safe and keep faith. Good night.
Listeners of this episode of Accio Politics might be interested in another quasi-political, sometimes edgy, always interesting podcast. Of course, I'm speaking of my podcast, Thank You for Spieling. Please check it out wherever podcasts are found. That's Spieling, Spieling. Every episode is a different topic, but we've had several science-based, very informative episodes on COVID-19, how to protect yourself, and what antibodies in the body are working to do, as well as various talks about video games and other things from my childhood with some of my closest friends. Listening to an episode of Thank You for Spieling is like joining us as our friend. Please give it a try. Thank you for spieling.
Support this show by going to patreon.com/occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.